Conferencia magistral titulada Bio-Ingeniería.
And what I want to talk to you today about is engineering. What is engineering? Engineering is scientific knowledge, mathematics, and ingenuity. And what we use those for is to develop solutions for technical problems. I think it's important that engineers think of practicality, safety, and cost. Engineers make things we need. Engineers make things we want. They make things that make our lives easier, appliances, things to stay connected. They make things we desire. What I'd really like to talk to you about is my field of expertise, and that's biomedical engineering. And it's basically taking engineering principles and techniques and applying them to the medical field. We take the design and problem-solving skills that we've learned in engineering and combine them with medical science. Biomedical engineering is a very, very broad field. It encompasses chemical engineering, chemistry, electrical engineering, electronics, mechanical engineering, and many of the subspecialties of medicine. So my interest has always been, how do you develop a medical device? Well, you can't be Harry Potter and wave your magic wand and say, there's my medical device. Doesn't work. So how do we do it? It starts with an idea. You need a team anymore. I would like to claim that everything that I've been associated with, I developed myself, but I can't. It's really a team effort. You need to make sure you have the right engineers. Part of that team has to be the end user. You can't develop a medical device without asking the surgeon if that's what he wants. Now, as an example, I am going to give you a team that I'm working with right now. It's a small medical startup. It consists of 3 people. Me, I do engineering and sales and marketing. Tanner Hargens, an old graduate student of mine who does engineering, quality control, manufacturing, and a surgeon. And what we had was the idea of joint replacement or artificial cartilage. Let's get back to developing devices. Is there a real need for the device? And that's a question we asked ourselves. We had an idea. And the idea was an artificial cartilage. But do we really need it? And this is something engineers have to ask themselves. Am I developing this for myself, or am I developing it for the rest of the world? Well, you have to ask 2 questions. Do current devices have problems? And is there a market? Now, how do you know if there's a market? Well, you can document it by the number of procedures. You can document it by the sales of similar devices. And you can document it by the number of patients that need treatment. So, our next step, and your next step as an engineer, is to develop a specification. And what you want to do is you want to write performance requirements, material requirements, size requirements, tolerances, and don't forget cost. Because if my device costs more than what's out there, doctors aren't going to use it. Our device failed. Do you give up at this point in time? Of course not. You're bright engineers, you fix it. The next step in our development of any medical device, after our animal trials are complete and they're successful, what we've got to do is do human trials. The next thing, before I go to sell this device, is really boring. My tests are done, my surgeons are happy, and the engineers say, boy, let's go out and watch this thing sell. No, wrong. You've got to write instructions for use. I know engineers hate this stuff. The fun stuff's the engineering. But the instructions for use are really important. You have to teach. You guys that make the device have to teach the surgeon how to use it, because they've never used it before. You think we're done? Wrong. We're not done yet. Now comes the part of medical devices that I absolutely hate, and that's regulatory approval. This is the true death for most small companies because they don't know how to do it. And you engineers, if you get into medical devices, had better learn how you get approval. And it's not just for devices like this. It's electronic things have to have UL approval to sell in the United States. So it's not just medical devices. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is the U.S. approval agency. The Community European is for international. And I put this up, and everybody thinks it's a joke. It's a maze. It's the regulatory maze. Notice there's a way in. There's no way out. You can't get out of the regulatory maze. And it's not a joke. You will never get out of the regulatory maze. Okay, in summary, how do you develop a medical device? You need a team, the right team. We have to determine if there's a need. We have to decide, does our idea satisfy that need? You engineers have to check the prior art. I know engineers don't like to go to the literature. You want to do engineering, you got to go back to the literature and read. You have to develop a specification. You have to make prototypes. And you have to do tests. After you've done the in vitro testing, you'll probably have to modify it, just like we did. You go back to in vitro testing, change the specification, and redo it. Human trials are next, instructions for use, and the horrible regulatory approval. You have to monitor for the problems we talked about. You may have to change the product once it's out in the field, and you have to keep improving it. So engineering is not done once you've developed the product. It's a continuing process. We need money. Engineers are part of that raising money. Okay, well, thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it.